Logistics, simply put, is getting goods and services from point A to point B, and without it, economies around the world crumble. And as we have learned from the supply chain disruptions that came from the Russia-Ukraine war, people starve. And now, it is a problem that has held Africa back in more than one ways, and a tragically low road penetration rate of 34% and transport costs, which is about 100% higher than other continents, is what we are experiencing now. And that is the reason given for Africa's poor trade record within its borders. Coupled with that, the logistics industry suffers one of the worst gender disparities in the world. And according to research firm JP Andrews, only 2% of the 125 million people that work in the sector are female. And that's why we have a female guest on this part of the discussion, Guguletu Siso. And she will be joining us to look at the industry, the sector that she has plunged in since 2018. We'll look at the successes and an entrepreneur within the few minutes that we have. Thank you so much, Guguletu, for joining us on Business Edge.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So tell us, what actually pushed you, let's not say push, what actually lured you or enticed you into going into the logistics business? What are those things that you looked at that felt, okay, you should, as a woman, go into this area of business?
Okay, awesome. So I'll be honest, this started off as a passion project. I'd moved back from Namibia back to my home country of Zimbabwe, and I was trying to get some medicine to my grandmother, who lives in a village just about 150 kilometers away from the city that I was in at the time. And the experience was so frustrating that I decided to do something about it, to be honest. That's literally how Tumizo started. We then transitioned to freight, which was the topic under discussion today, has so many severe problems. And we're looking at solving one of them, which is access to working capital to stem the gap between when transporters get paid and when they're actually able to get goods moving.
So there is one thing to have a passion to step into a business terrain, but there's another thing that has to do with challenges that you get faced with. And you've been a female in a somewhat male-dominated enterprise. So tell us, how have you been able to manage yourself, manage your business, manage your cybersecurity business in that field?
I would say that, as you're aware, females are not exactly the most common, sex within the logistics sector. So you're faced with a lot of challenges. You get a lot of bias, a lot of ignorance. I don't know how many people I've had conversations with who think that the company is owned either by my father or my husband, which shows that they are unable to fathom the thought that a logistics company could be owned by a woman. So, in the beginning, you'd want to fight people, you'd want to prove your worth that you can do this. But I think over time, we've been active in the space for the past 4 years. You quickly learn how to deal with it. There's some conversations with certain representatives of institutions that I simply can't have because I know that conversation won't go anywhere. So I'll push my male compatriots to go there and have the conversation in my stead. And there are others where I simply will not pursue that particular business relationship because it's just too hard, and the end results just don't make sense. So this is something that we're really still facing, and to be honest, dealing with it is still an ongoing battle. And hopefully this is something that will change within the oncoming years as well.
Yes, let's talk about dealing with it. How? Because, of course, there are other women who are plunging into the same investment, plunging into the same business terrain. You are already having your own fair share of experience. How do you think that can be addressed? How do you think they can deal with these pressures and these declines and these deprivations?
Is it specific to the logistics sector or business in general?
Yes, logistics, cybersecurity, basically.
Okay, cool. So I would say in logistics, you need to certainly have your wits around you. And you also need to be able to utilize all of the advantages that you have within your arsenal. Female empowerment is definitely on the rise. So there are some programs, especially within supply chain, where certain large institutions have a certain quota for either female-led or youth-led businesses. So if you want to get into that space, getting in via those particular programs definitely makes your life easier because you know that those particular institutions are more able as well as more receptive to having a conversation with you as a female. Secondly, as I pointed out, there are some conversations that as much as you may push, you know that the results, as opposed to if you're a man, would definitely be much more difficult. So if you can push a man, I know it sounds bad, but if you can push a man to have that conversation in your state, but you're the one making the decisions in your in the background, definitely do so, because what matters at the end is the end result. Thirdly, there are some conversations as well as some battles that at this point you know that you simply can't win. So I'd recommend that just don't waste your efforts. If you can see that nothing tangible is going to come out of it because of the bias that is being presented to you because of your sex. So I would say, in closing, those are the three coping mechanisms that we have been using to get into the space, as well as to survive once actually within the space.
All right, finally, before I let you go, Guletu, because we're already pressed for time, what do you think governments, civil society organizations, and of course the private sector can also do to support in a way to ensure that the logistics and cybersecurity terrain is safe, inclusive, and of course diverse, most especially for women? Just in about 30 seconds.
No problem. So I would say that it needs to start off at an earlier stage, right? We've seen great results with the push for women to get into tech starting off at a school age. So I think that the perception of logistics being a male-dominated business and as a result being unsafe for women can definitely change if that perception as well as embracement changes within the early stages for female. So if we can get that started within the early stages and we can get more women into the space as well as a more acceptable environment for women earlier on, I would say that governments as well as enterprises as they get on, it won't be something that is now seen as taboo, but will be something that is now seen as an everyday sector. So I'd say really start early and make logistics more acceptable as well as more attractable within those early stages.
All right, thank you so much, Guguletu Sisu, for joining us. When are you going to be scaling up your investment to Nigeria?
Pretty soon. It was pretty much focused on Southern and East Africa for now.
Please. We hope you will bring that to West Africa, because New Central will be willing to drive that conversation and strike a deal with you on that.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so you can draw a bit of inspiration if you're a female and you're hoping to plunge into that sector. You can draw inspiration from Guguletu and, of course, take that huge faith and that huge leap. Let's quickly go on a short break, and when we're back, it will be time for NC4 to watch. UNC4 to watch on Business Edge. We start by telling you that the U.S. unveiled a new strategy to forge closer relations with sub-Saharan Africa, while contending that China and Russia were motivated by narrow self-interests in their attempts to strengthen ties with the region. South African utility firm Eskom has proposed that households pay a far greater portion of their bills in the form of fixed charges related to the supply of electricity. Currently, these are bundled into the price per unit of power. Egypt's annual urban consumer inflation accelerated to 13.6% year-on-year in July from 13.2% in June. Data from the country's statistics agency, CAPMAS, showed on Wednesday the cost of commodities and fuel is still the main drivers of the nation's inflation figures. And finally, the managing director of electricity company Ghana, Samuel Mahama, has justified the disconnection of power supply to the Yilo and Manya Krobo municipalities. Speaking in an interview, Mahama expressed and explained that it is not right, but a privilege-based payment of bills for the power can be supplied. And that's it on today's edition of Business Edge. Don't forget that you can visit our social media platforms at New Central TV. You can download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. And you can also visit our websites, www.newcentral.africa. At the top of the hour, that's 12, it will be time for New Central News. So stick around for that and do not change the dial. I'm Nico Onobanjo. Have a beautiful day.